Jesus himself, when he is born, Matthew chapter 1, son of Joseph, son of. 14 generations are listed for us. Why is it important that the Messiah can preserve his own history, but the African can throw away his own history? Before you become a Christian, Christianity expects you and washes you away from your culture so that it makes you become part of the European culture. Therefore, Christianity as we have it, it cannot be a form of spirituality, but a form of colonialism. When your name is so and so, on your left from your mother's side, you are born by so and so. On your mother's side, on your paternal side, you are born by so and so. On your father's side, paternal side, from so and so. On your mother's side, paternal side, so and so. So that the four cardinals, the four grandparents who form the two parents, who form you, you're coming from a whole lineage of four couples, four on the left, four on the right, that make the two, that is your mother and your father. And through that, you become a living human being. And when you look into that genealogy, as it is being related by the old people, this was not meant for worship initially. It's only now, our generation, because of ignorance, we have converted our own ancestors into objects of worship. Initially, this was intended to connect you to where you are coming from. You are son of, born of, so and so who is son of, so and so who is son of, so and so who is son of, son of. And when the Xhosa finishes, then he says, Embo, where it all started, connecting us with the great ancestors who gave birth to us, though we cannot remember who they are. Christianity, that's where to plug in there for that. In the beginning, then God created the heavens and the earth, and Adam and Eve, and the whole story of Western epistemologies start taking its place from there. But within our own culture, had we preserved it long enough, we should have been able as Africans at least to relate 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 20 generations of where we are coming from, so that in the midst of this, we're able to interact with each other and understand. And in the midst of saying so also, you'd find that as you mention these forefathers and as you mention these grandfathers, each one of them had a history. I was actually fascinated the other day when I was studying the history of the Somalis and the Malis, the Griotis, how actually they can relate their histories, sometimes 14, 15, 16 centuries backwards, remembering with meticulous detail how and what each one of their forefathers and their kings did. That history becomes an archive of information, a collection of technologies and sciences, a preservation of prophecies, a pronouncement of oracles, contracts that were signed, enmities that were created, relationships that were founded, children that were born, artifacts that were made also. And all this information is preserved in our oral tradition. For now, all we remain having is a piece of art which you may look at and they simply look like colors. But if you look at these colors very carefully, your diet is included in these colors, your spiritual connectivity is in these colors, your history is in these colors, your ancient archives are in these colors, architecture is in these colors. And at the end of the day, it's not just a piece of art, it becomes an object through which you can study into archives. So when you look, it's not just about clothes that are seeming to be matching. Look carefully into those artifacts. You may just find that a whole history has been recorded, but because it was not written, it was designed into artifacts. And there is your library. The library of the European is in books. The library of the black man is in the spirit. And those who are able to tap into the spirit, you may just find that your blood and your spirit remembers what your conscious mind may not remember. African spirituality understood the connectivity you have with the four roots that are all flowing into you. This becomes your compass, African child. This becomes your compass that will tell you where your north is. It will tell you where your east is. It will tell you where your south is. It will tell you where the west is. And an African who does not have his compass will always be roving on the seas of life, swept away by all forms of religion. The capturing of the African child was not only an economic capture, it was also a spiritual capture. And by removing the African from his roots, you were able to transport them as a potted plant, which can only be restricted by the extent at which the roots can be expanded. No tree can grow beyond the limitations of its own roots. No house can stand unless the foundation is strong. The value of African spirituality was the connectivity of the African. Firstly, before you can connect with your God, you needed to connect with yourself through your forefathers, through your ancestry, and your ancestry, which is a summary of you in the past. Knowledge systems that are growing and living in you became your access into your greater space of spirituality. Tampering with these roots meant removing African from his greater connection. All our entire Christian experiences in the 21st century becomes a facade, a pretense, becomes a hypocritical process where the African is trying to trace his God through Western languages. And the more we talk about it, the more confused we become. Because Jesus himself, when he is born, Matthew chapter 1, son of Joseph, son of, 14 generations are listed for us. Why is it important that the Messiah can preserve his own history, but the African can throw away his own history? Before you become a Christian, Christianity expects you and washes you away from your culture so that it makes you become part of the European culture. Therefore, Christianity as we have it, it cannot be a form of spirituality, but a form of colonialism, where basically you are taking away a people from themselves to a superior and a dominant culture. And in the dominant culture, they become twice slaves. Slaves to the economic masters and slaves to the spiritual bosses. Spirituality controls our economics. Spirituality controls our politics. When you lose the battle with your gods, you have lost the battle with your enemies. And with that in mind, we need to understand that we are under a spell of dark witchcraft, where our minds cannot think as Africans because our tongues are full of sugar and our tongues are full of plastic foods. Secondly, I would respond then to the transition between recognizing our ancestors and worshiping them. Missionaries came together with mercenaries, two group of people that came together and were working together. Missionaries and mercenaries. Missionaries would always come ahead to hypnotize, to get the people into one group and get them as missionaries, to get them to cool down first and detox them of being barbaric. And then the mercenaries would follow with the business agenda. It was a well thought through plan. Missionaries and mercenaries, they had tea together in the evening to discuss the strategies of how work was happening amongst the black people as they were colonizing them. We cannot refuse in the 21st century that Christianity worked together with colonialism. I know some of us are deep into it. It is difficult for you to look at something that you love. This knife pierces you hard. It has cut you so many times, but you cannot just put it away. You love it. So, but let's address it candidly so that you can begin a journey of self-awakening. That Christianity, as it came through the colonial system, the intentions were not pure intentions of introducing the African to God. The intentions were clear, as of using Christianity as a catchment area, as a clean-up center, as a preparation area for the colonial system. So immediately the missionary demonized your forefathers as demons. What else can you expect? The transition again we find when we say we worship ancestors. That language on its own, it is colonial language. For we have never worshipped ancestors as Africans. We have always mentioned them and recognized them. When we finish up, we say Kamat, we say Mvelingam, we say Nkulunkulu. We always end up giving the worship to where it belongs. And this whole business of worship, I personally don't understand it also. Are you telling me that deity is has such a low self-esteem that it needs to be worshipped by human beings? You have a whole God who is in heaven, who has angels and everything else. And the only thing that he lives on is to be worshipped by people. In my own mind, small little as it is, if your God demands you to worship him, then he has a terrible self-esteem. Correct worship is when a king puts his crown in front of another king. Equals must work together and work in harmony. Then that's dignity of the African people. The religion that makes the African kneel down and bow and lie on his ground in front of the pastor and in front of the white man only colonizes the mind and reduces the royalty in you to the slave that is in you. Such a religion has never been part of Africa. The African would bow and kneel in front of his forefathers, recognizing that they were older than him, and they brought him into existence as they link him up with God. The Christianity is a bully to African culture. It is a bully to African culture, for it bullies our weddings. It bullies our respect systems. It bullies our wealth systems. It bullies everything. In fact, the first bus stop of Christianity is to make sure that you look like a European before Jesus can accept you. You must put away everything that is closer, from your food to your diet to your clothes, everything. Remove everything that is African. And then when you've removed everything, then we must baptize you as if we are giving birth to you afresh with a new identity. And in some cases of the past, when you're being baptized, then your name must be taken away. What's your name? Mandlenkos. That's not Christian enough. Your name is now Mark. Can you tell me if you are thinking and your head is working? Mandlenkos is not a Christian name, but Mark is a Christian name. Mandlenkos means the power of God. So how would the African even have his own name changed from a spiritual name to a Eurocentric, Jewish-centered name? Colonialism is a reality. We are all, let's agree, we are all addicts of Christianity who are in rehabilitation. We are all in the recovery center.